I still remember the exact pattern of the bathroom tiles, white squares with tiny blue flowers. I'd been counting them while my stomach cramped from too much birthday cake. Trying to make myself throw up because I thought if I got sick, maybe they'd pay attention to me instead of whispering in the corner like they'd been doing all day. When I finally came out, the fellowship hall was empty. Not just quiet empty, the folding tables were gone. The streamers I'd hung myself that morning were wadded up in the trash. Even the birthday banner with my name on it, happy 9th birthday. Kestrel was nowhere to be found. I thought it was a game at first. Hide and seek, maybe. I called out for Mom, for Dad, for my sister Indy and my brother Caspian. My voice echoed off the church walls like I was in a cave. The janitor found me 2 hours later, sitting on the steps outside, still wearing my birthday dress with the grass stains on the hem. "Where's your family, sweetheart?" he asked, and I couldn't answer because I didn't know. They'd left my backpack. Inside was a juice box, a peanut butter sandwich, and a folded piece of notebook paper in Mom's handwriting. "Start over, we did." The foster system wasn't kind, but it was predictable. I learned early that if you don't cause trouble, people leave you alone. I got good at being invisible and not needing things. I taught myself to read financial statements in the library when other kids were playing outside. I studied like my life depended on it because, honestly, it did. College was a full scholarship to state, computer science, with a minor in business. I worked 3 jobs and slept for hours a night, but I graduated summa cum laude. My foster parents didn't come to graduation. I wouldn't have invited them anyway. By 25, I was running cybersecurity for a mid-sized tech company. By 30, I'd started my own firm. By 35, I'd sold it for 8 figures and bought a house in the hills where no one could find me. Unless I wanted them to. I never looked for them, not once. I told myself I didn't care what happened to the family that threw me away like a broken toy. I told myself I was better off, but I kept tabs. Of course I kept tabs. You don't survive what I survived without learning to watch your back. And that meant knowing where the threats were. Mom died when I was 28. Heart attack. I found out from an obituary search I ran every few months. Dad remarried a woman named Felicity who had 2 kids of her own. Indy became a teacher, married young, divorced younger. Caspian bounced between jobs and cities like a pinball, always one step ahead of his debts. They never tried to find me, not once in 23 years. I used to think that hurt more than being abandoned in the first place, but I was wrong. The hurt was just different, sharper, more precise, like a scalpel instead of a hammer. I built a life without them. I had friends, sort of, colleagues who respected me. A therapist who helped me understand that what happened wasn't my fault, even though I still felt like it was. I had routines and rituals and a house that was mine, where no one could leave me. But I also had something else. Something I'd been building since I was 16 and first learned how to code. Something patient and quiet and very, very thorough. I called it my insurance policy. The message came on a Tuesday. I was in my home office. 3 monitors glowing in the dark, working on a security audit for a client in Singapore. The notification popped up on my personal phone, a Facebook message from an account I didn't recognize. "Kestrel, is this you? It's Indy. I know this is weird, but I need to talk to you. Please." I stared at the screen for a long time. 23 years of silence, and now this. I almost deleted it. Should have deleted it. But there's something about seeing your name in your sister's handwriting that cuts through all the scar tissue you've spent decades building. She'd found me through a reverse image search on LinkedIn. Smart girl, always had been, even as a kid. 3 years older than me, but she used to let me help with her homework. Back when I thought we were a real family, I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I did what I always do when I need information. I went digging. Indy Martinez, Nee Holloway. Still teaching, but at a private school now. Married to a guy named Vance who sold insurance. They lived in a suburb 40 minutes from where we grew up. In a house that was worth more than a teacher's salary should have been able to afford. Caspian was harder to track. He'd been using different names, different addresses. But I had tools most people didn't have access to, and I'd been refining them for years. I found him in Oregon, working construction, living in a trailer park with a woman named Roxanne and her 2 kids. Dad was in Arizona with Felicity and her grown children. Retired from the post office, collecting Social Security. Living in a golf course community that looked like a beige nightmare. They all looked normal, happy, even like they'd moved on just fine without the daughter and sister they'd thrown away. I went back to Indy's message. She'd sent 3 more while I was researching. I know you probably hate us. I hate us too. Please. I don't know where else to turn. Caspian's in trouble. Bad trouble. The kind that might get him killed. That last one made me pause. I'd always had a soft spot for Caspian. Even though he'd been just as complicit in leaving me, he was only 11. When it happened, old enough to know better, but young enough that I could almost forgive him. Almost. I typed back, "What kind of trouble?" The response came immediately. Like she'd been waiting by her phone. Money. He borrowed from the wrong people, a lot of money. They're saying if he doesn't pay by Friday, they'll hurt Roxanne's kids. I should have felt something. Sympathy, maybe. Or satisfaction that karma was finally catching up with them. But all I felt was tired. Tired of being the one people turned to when everything went wrong, even when they'd spent decades pretending I didn't exist. How much? I asked. 50,000. I know it's a lot, but Vance and we've been saving for a house. And we can maybe come up with 30 if we cash out everything, but I stopped reading. $50,000. I spent more than that on wine last year. It was nothing to me. But it was everything to them. I'll handle it. I typed. Really? Oh my God. Kestrel, thank you. I can't believe. Don't thank me yet. I need to think about this. Give me until Friday. I closed the conversation and leaned back in my chair. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars I'd never been able to see as a kid. I'd built this life, this fortress of security and success, specifically so I'd never have to depend on anyone again, but they were depending on me, just like old times. I opened my laptop and started typing. Not a money transfer, something else. Something that had been percolating in the back of my mind for years. Waiting for the right moment. I'd always been good at puzzles. And this family, my family, they left me with the biggest puzzle of all. How do you hurt people who've already forgotten you exist? The answer, I was starting to realize, was simple. You remind them who they chose to throw away. I spent the next 3 days doing what I do best, digging. Not just surface level social media stalking, but deep data mining, financial records, property deeds, tax filings, credit reports, all perfectly legal. All perfectly accessible if you know where to look and how to ask. What I found was fascinating. Dad's retirement wasn't as comfortable as it looked. He'd been borrowing against his 401k for years, probably to keep up with Felicity's spending habits. Their house was mortgaged to the hilt, and they were 3 payments behind on their HOA dues. Indy and Vance's suburban dream was built on quicksand. They'd been living off credit cards and home equity loans for years, spending like they were rich when they were actually drowning. The private school where Indy worked was hemorrhaging money and would probably close by next year. Caspian's situation was even worse than Indy had described. He didn't just owe money to loan sharks, he owed money to everyone. Back taxes, child support from a relationship I didn't know about, medical bills from a motorcycle accident last year. The man was drowning in debt, and the people he'd borrowed from weren't known for their patience. But here's what was really interesting. They all had one thing in common. They'd all been struggling for years, barely keeping their heads above water. And not one of them had tried to reach out to me. Not when Dad needed money for Mom's funeral. Not when Indy was going through her divorce. Not when Caspian was in the hospital. They'd only come to me when they were desperate. When there was nowhere else to turn. I sat in my office Thursday night, staring at the family photo I'd kept all these years. It was from my 8th birthday. The year before everything fell apart. We were all smiling, arms around each other, looking like a normal family. I was in the middle, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a homemade card that said "World's Best Big Sister" in Indy's careful handwriting. I used to look at that photo and feel sad. Now I just felt empty. My phone buzzed. Another message from Indy. "I know you're probably busy, but the deadline is tomorrow. I'm so scared. Kestrel. I keep thinking about what you must have felt like that day at the church, and I'm so sorry. We were all so sorry. We wanted to come back for you, but Dad said it would be too complicated, and we were just kids, and I stopped reading. Too complicated. That's what my life had been to them, a complication." I opened my laptop and began typing, not to Indy, but to myself, a checklist of sorts. The money transfer was easy. I'd set up a shell company years ago for situations like this, completely legal, completely untraceable back to me. $50,000 appeared in Caspian's account Friday morning, just in time for his deadline. But that was just the beginning. I'd spent years building a network of contacts in finance, real estate, law enforcement, people who owed me favors, people who respected my work, people who knew that when Kestrel Holloway called, it was worth their time to listen. The package I sent to Indy's house was small, but carefully curated. The flash drive contained something I'd been working on for months, a complete digital reconstruction of that day at the church. Security footage I'd obtained from the church's old archives, pieced together and enhanced. You could see them packing up while I was in the bathroom. You could see Dad loading the car while Mom threw away my birthday decorations. You could see Indy and Caspian sitting in the back seat, not even looking back as they drove away. The family photo was the same one I'd been looking at, but I'd had it professionally restored and reprinted. All of us smiling, all of us together, all of us lying about being a family. The post-it note said simply, "Smile big." It was a reference to something Dad used to say when he took our picture. Smile big, kids. This is going to be a good one. None of them were good ones. It turned out they were all lies. I hit send on the final email and leaned back in my chair. 23 years of preparation. And it was finally time to see what I'd built. The first domino fell at 3:47 p.m. on Friday. I was in a client meeting when my phone started buzzing with notifications from the monitoring systems I'd set up years ago. Bank accounts frozen, credit cards declined, automatic payments bouncing. I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. Pulling up the feeds on my phone, it was beautiful in a way. Like watching a controlled demolition, everything falling exactly as I'd planned. The house seizure was the crown jewel. I'd been buying up their debts for years through various shell companies, waiting for the right moment to call them in. When you own someone's mortgage, their credit card debt, their car loans, their children's student loans, well, you own them. The beauty of it was that it was all perfectly legal. I'd done nothing but collect on debts they'd legitimately incurred. I'd filed all the proper paperwork, followed all the procedures. I was just another creditor. As far as the law was concerned, my phone rang. Indy, Kestrel, oh my God, something's happening. All our accounts are frozen, and there are people at the house. And they're saying something about foreclosure. But that's impossible because we're not even behind on our payments. You are, I said quietly. You're behind on payments. To me, silence. Then, what do you mean? I've been buying your debts for years. Indy, your mortgage, your credit cards, your husband's business loans. I own all of it. I own you. That's not possible. You can't just, I can, I did, and now I'm calling it in. But why? I don't understand. We asked for help, and you helped us. You saved Caspian. Why would you? Because you left me. I said, and my voice sounded strange even to me. Hollow. You left me in a church bathroom and drove away, and you never looked back, not once in 23 years. We were kids. You were 13, old enough to know better. We wanted to come back for you, but Dad said it would be too complicated. I know. You told me. Another silence. Then, quietly, we were scared. We were all scared. And we didn't know what to do, and Dad said it would be easier if we just started over somewhere else. We didn't know what else to do. You could have tried to find me. You could have looked for me. You could have sent a letter, made a phone call, anything, but you didn't. You just forgot I existed. We didn't forget. We could never forget. We talked about you all the time. Especially after Mom died. We all regretted it, but we didn't know how to fix it. So you did nothing. We did nothing. She admitted, and I know that makes us cowards. And I know it makes us terrible people, but we were so ashamed. We were so ashamed of what we'd done, and every year that passed made it harder to reach out. I closed my eyes. Part of me wanted to believe her, the part that was still 9 years old, still sitting on those church steps, still hoping they'd come back for me. But the rest of me remembered all the years I'd spent checking the mailbox, jumping every time the phone rang, lying awake at night wondering if I'd done something wrong to make them leave me. You know what's funny? I said, I used to think about this conversation. What I'd say if you ever reached out. I had it all planned out, how I'd forgive you, how we'd be a family again, how everything would be okay. It could still be okay. She said quickly, we could still be a family. I know we messed up, but no, I said, we couldn't. Because you didn't reach out when you missed me. You reached out when you needed me. There's a difference. Please, Kestrel, please don't do this. We'll pay you back somehow. We'll figure it out. Just please don't take our house. I'm not taking anything. I said, I'm just collecting what's mine, what's been mine all along. I hung up and turned off my phone. Then I went back to my meeting and finished discussing network security protocols like nothing had happened. Because, for me, nothing had happened. This was just Thursday afternoon, and I was just cleaning up some old business. The voice note from Caspian came that evening. I turned my phone back on to find 17 missed calls and 43 messages, but his voice note was the only one that mattered. "You ruined everything we built," he said. And he sounded exactly like he had when he was 11 years old and I'd beaten him at checkers. Petulant, angry, hurt. 23 years of building a life, and you destroyed it in one day. I hope you're happy. I hit play again, and again, and again. The next few weeks were a masterclass in controlled chaos. I watched from my hilltop house as their carefully constructed lives crumbled. Exactly as I designed them to, the foreclosure on Indy's house went through. Dad's retirement community began eviction proceedings. Caspian's trailer was repossessed. And he and Roxanne had to move in with her sister, but I wasn't just watching. I was documenting. Every phone call, every email, every desperate message they sent. I saved them all in a folder labeled Family Reunion. The media attention was unexpected, but not unwelcome. Local news picked up the story first. Tech executive forecloses on estranged family. And then it went national. The narrative was perfect. Abandoned child grows up to become successful. Takes revenge on family who left her behind. David and Goliath in reverse. I hired a publicist to manage the story, not to suppress it, but to control it. I wanted people to understand what had happened. I wanted them to see that this wasn't just about money or revenge, it was about accountability. The interview requests started pouring in. 60 Minutes, CNN, The Today Show. I turned them all down except one, a long-form piece in The Atlantic about family abandonment and its long-term effects. I wanted to tell the story properly, not in sound bites. The reporter, a woman named Quinthorne, spent 3 days with me. She was thorough, professional, and had clearly done her homework. She'd interviewed foster care workers, child psychologists, legal experts. She'd tracked down my old foster parents and some of my college professors. "What do you hope to accomplish with this?" she asked on the last day, sitting in my living room with the city spread out below us. "I want them to understand what it feels like to be thrown away," I said. "I want them to know what it's like to have everything you've built disappear in a single day. And after that, what's your end game?" I thought about it for a long time. I don't know. I never planned past this point. "Do you think you'll ever forgive them?" "I think forgiveness is overrated," I said. "I think accountability is more important." The article came out a month later. It was fair, nuanced, and devastating. Quinn had done her job well. She'd presented all sides of the story. But the facts spoke for themselves. You can't abandon a child and expect no consequences. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of messages from other foster kids, other abandoned children, other people who'd been thrown away by their families. I read every single one. But it was the message from Dr. Evelyn Marsh that changed everything. Dr. Marsh ran a foundation for abandoned children. She'd been following my story and had a proposition. She wanted to know if I'd be interested in funding a new program, a legal advocacy group for kids who'd been abandoned or surrendered by their families, not just financial support. She wrote, "We need someone who understands the system from the inside, someone who can help us change it." I stared at her message for a long time. I'd spent so many years focused on the past, on making them pay for what they'd done. But maybe it was time to focus on the future, on making sure other kids didn't have to go through what I'd gone through. I called her that afternoon and set up a meeting. 2 weeks later, I was sitting in a conference room with a team of lawyers, social workers, and child advocates, planning something I never thought I'd want to be part of, a way to help other people. The Kestrel Foundation launched. 6 months later, our mission was simple: to provide legal advocacy and support for children who'd been abandoned or surrendered by their families. We helped with everything from finding relatives to navigating the foster system to suing for damages when appropriate. It wasn't about revenge, it was about justice and maybe, finally, about healing. The first case we took on was a 7-year-old girl named Phoenix, whose parents had left her at a fire station with a note saying they couldn't handle her anymore. We helped her find her grandmother, who'd been looking for her for months. We helped her get therapy, get legal representation, and get justice. Standing in that courtroom, watching Phoenix hug her grandmother for the first time, I understood something I'd never understood before. Healing doesn't come from hurting the people who hurt you. It comes from making sure they can't hurt anyone else. The final message from Indy came on a Tuesday morning. Exactly 1 year after their first plea for help, I was in my office, reviewing applications for the Foundation Scholarship Program. When the notification popped up on my phone, I saw the article about the Foundation. "I'm proud of you. I know I don't have the right to say that, but I am." I stared at the message for a long time. A year ago, I would have deleted it immediately. Now, I found myself typing back, "How are you doing?" Her response came quickly, "We're okay." Not great, but okay. Vance and I are renting a small apartment across town. I'm still teaching, but at a public school now. The pay is less, but the kids need me more in Caspian. Clean for 6 months. He's working construction in Oregon, living with Roxanne and her kids. They're not married, but they're happy. He talks about you sometimes. What does he say? That he understands why you did it. That he deserved it. That he's sorry. I closed my eyes, and Dad, he's struggling. Felicity left him when the money ran out. He's living in a studio apartment, working part-time at a hardware store. He's not well. Kestrel, I think the guilt is eating him alive. I didn't respond immediately. Part of me was glad he was suffering. Part of me was sad about it. Most of me was just tired. I know you probably don't want to hear this, Indy continued, but I need you to know something. What we did was unforgivable. We were cowards and we were selfish. And we destroyed a little girl's life because we were too scared to face our own problems. But you weren't a problem. Kestrel, you were never a problem. You were the best part of our family. And we threw you away because we couldn't handle our own mess. That's on us, not on you. I wiped my eyes. I hadn't realized I was crying. I don't expect forgiveness, she wrote. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that losing you was the biggest mistake of our lives, not because of what you became, but because of who you were. You were our little sister, and we loved you. And we failed you in the worst possible way. I see what you're doing with the foundation. I see how you're helping other kids like you. And I think maybe this is what you were meant to do. Maybe everything that happened, all the pain and all the anger, maybe it was leading to this. I know that's a terrible thing to say. I know I don't have the right to make meaning out of your suffering. But watching you turn your pain into purpose, it's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I set down my phone and walked to the window. The city stretched out below me. Millions of people living their lives, making their choices, trying to figure out how to be human in a world that often felt inhuman. My phone buzzed again. I know you'll probably never respond to this, and that's okay. But I wanted you to know that I'm proud to be your sister. I always was. Even when I was too much of a coward to show it. I picked up my phone and typed back, "I'm proud of you too." 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Does this mean? Could we maybe talk sometime? Not about the past, just about now. I thought about it for a long time. In the end, I wrote, "Maybe, not yet, but maybe, I can wait." She replied, "I'm good at waiting now." I smiled despite myself. Good, because I'm not ready to be anyone's sister yet, but I'm working on it. Thank you for everything, for giving Caspian a chance to get clean, for teaching us what consequences look like, for showing us who you really are, and thank you for the message, for not giving up on me completely. Never, she wrote. I would never give up on you, not again. I turned off my phone and walked back to my desk. The scholarship applications were still waiting, dozens of them from Kids Hood. Been through what I'd been through. Kids who needed someone to believe in them, someone to show them that being thrown away didn't mean they were worthless. I opened the first file and began to read. A 14-year-old named River whose parents had kicked him out for being gay. A 16-year-old named Sage whose mother had dropped her off at a relative's house and never came back. A 12-year-old named Storm whose father had abandoned him in a hospital. Each story was different, but they all ended the same way, with a child who'd been thrown away, trying to figure out how to build a life from nothing. I knew how that felt. I knew how it ended, and now, finally, I had the power to help them write better endings than the one I'd written for myself. I approved River's application first, then Sage's, then Storm's, one by one. I gave them what no one had given me at their age, a chance to start over. But this time with support, with resources, with someone who understood what it felt like to be discarded. Outside my window, the sun was setting over the city, painting everything gold. It was beautiful, in a way that made me think of birthday cakes and balloons and family photos that told lies. But it was also beautiful in a way that made me think of second chances, and new beginnings, and the possibility that sometimes, the best revenge is simply refusing to become the thing that broke you. I reached for the next application and began to read. There was work to do. And for the first time in my life, I was exactly where I belonged.